This message brought to you by Chicanos por la Causa.
Welcome to another segment of Latino USA TV and Latino Barrio Stories. This is Jose Leyba coming to you with stories about our leaders, about our community, because we need to tell our stories through our lens. If we don't tell our stories, then who will? And so consequently, we're trying to address Chicano leaders that are helping their community and continue to give back. Today, I'm glad to have a colleague and friend, Art Gastelum from Gateway Science and Engineering, and he's going to tell us a fantastic story about his life, but also about saving the famous El Pino here in East LA. So welcome, Art.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you very much.
So tell us how life was for you growing up in LA.
Well, I grew up in East LA, in Boyle Heights, in City Terrace, to a single mom. She got divorced from my dad when I was about 7 years old. Okay. So I was born in Boyle Heights actually by mistake. My mom was here visiting my grandmother, who was ill in 1949, and she ended up staying here 6 months rather than 2 weeks that she thought she was going to stay. So I ended up being born in a little Japanese hospital on 1st Street and Soto Street in Boyle Heights. But then obviously, as a child, I ended up going back to Nogales, Sonora, where my parents lived. So I lived there until I was about 4.5 years old. And then at that time, my Nino, who lived in Pico Rivera, convinced my mom that I really, because I was a gringo, that I should really come back to LA and be educated in LA. So my mom, bless her heart, she let me come back with my Nino to Pico Rivera. So I grew up in Pico Rivera until I was about 10. And then my mom came up, and then we moved to East LA. So now, that was my upbringing as a child.
Now, all those lessons of that interesting childhood, now, how did that propel you to go through East LA College, right, and then on to the university? But you had so much during your time at ELAC as a MECHA student and your involvement with the mayor at that time, correct?
So what happened was that, it was rough growing up by yourself. And I ended up getting married at a very young age. I got my girlfriend pregnant, but then I wanted to do the right thing and get married with her. But at that time, you had to have your parents' permission to get married if you were under 18. Right. I was only 17 when I got my girlfriend pregnant. So I couldn't marry her. And my mom said, no, you're too young, I'm not signing. So a year later, after I turned 18, my then girlfriend was pregnant again with my second daughter, Michelle. And then I decided, well, I'm old enough now. I don't need my mom's permission. So I ended up getting married. We got married, and at that time, I had just graduated from El Rancho High School, and we moved into Pico Rivera. Then I started working at Ford Motor Company, and but then I couldn't make the 6 month because I had to take a bus. I was taking 3 buses to get to Ford Motor Company.
So it was a bit of a struggle then.
It was
more
than a struggle. Yeah, I mean, it was tough getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, try to get the buses and try to get there in time, because the assembly line starts at 6 in the morning. So if you're not there, the assembly line can't start, right? Because everyone's got their role to play. So I didn't make probation, and after 6 months, I was let go from Ford Motor Company. So then I got a job at the Goodrich Tire Company in Commerce, and that was a little bit easier for me because I took the swing shift, which started at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you would get out at 11 o'clock at night. So I decided to go to East LA College during the day. So I was going to the college and then working at night. But then I realized that I wasn't an athlete, I wasn't an A student, and how am I going to get scholarships to go on to the university beyond East LA College? So I started reading the campus news, and I realized that the student body presidents were always getting scholarships. So I thought, That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run for office.
So you had a great idea after all these struggles. Okay, this is how I'm going to finance my education. And I think a lot of our viewers need to know that, and individuals that know you, they probably don't know that struggle.
Yeah.
That they see you as this successful business person and someone that gives back to the community. But I hope our viewers understand you did struggle and you made it and you're giving back, right? And,
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I ended up being student body president. I was a very active student body president. I was a real troublemaker for the administration because I felt that they were taking advantage of the students' finances. And so I got in trouble with the administration very quickly, and we ended up fighting, but I ended up winning. I ran for student body president, I won, but then they got so upset at me because I questioned the finances of the athletic department and how I was trying to figure out what football player uses a size 3 tennis shoe. And I saw these expenses, so we questioned it. We did an audit, and we brought it to the administration's attention. They didn't want to do anything about it, so I went to the Board of Trustees. They looked into it. They realized that we were right, and the president ended up getting fired over that because what happened was that the athletic department ended up running a campaign against me, and they did a recall. So I got recalled. I was the first student body president that ever got recalled in the history of the community college district.
Yeah, that is really amazing, Art. I didn't know that about you, and I think a lot of our viewers who know you didn't know that about you. A rabble-rouser as a young man.
So I got recalled, and I knew that I was in trouble when I showed up to on election day on campus, and I saw the entire football team lined up at the polling place. And I go, what's going on here, right? So I got recalled. And then one of the staff members from the administration, from the president's office, actually took me aside a few days later, the election, and she told me, Dr. Wells changed the ballots. I said, what do you mean? She says, have them look into it. Dr. Wells, who at that time was the president of the college.
President of the college.
He changed the ballots. He did not want you getting reelected.
I can't believe that. Yeah. I can't believe that it really happened.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It happened. So I went to the Board of Trustees. The liberals on the board didn't want to hear about it. So it was the 3 Republicans on the Board of Trustees, led by Michael Antonovich, who looked into it, and they found out it was true. And they ordered a new election. So a new election was held. I ran again, and I won. And then they fired the president.
So you've been involved in firing 2 presidents as an 18, 19-year-old activist. Okay?
Exactly.
But exactly. I think a lot of the mechistas at that time were involved in those types of issues and the corruption that was rampant.
Exactly.
And you stood up for it. So thank you for that.
So as student body president, there was an election going on for the mayor's race in Los Angeles. And I decided that I wanted to invite all the candidates to come and speak to my students. So I invited them, and 4 of them came. One of them was Tom Bradley. He was the councilman, and that's how I met him. And so I was really impressed with him because he was the only one that kind of stayed behind to speak to the students. And after that, when the session was over, he asked me, I haven't had lunch, Art. Is there a place where we can have lunch? So we ended up walking down to Atlantic Boulevard to the IHOP. We ended up having lunch.
You still remember all those little details, right?
Oh yeah, it was just, it was, for me, I can't forget that because he was so much part of my life. So we were having lunch, and he started asking me, what got you into politics? Why did you decide to run for student body president? So I told him that I had been involved in the campaign a few years before to unseat a judge that has sent me to camp. I went to jail when I was 17 years old. A friend of mine had stolen a car, and he came over to my house in a brand new Mustang, and I knew it was stolen. He comes over and he says, hey, let's go for a ride. And I remember his name, Sabo, and I said, Sabo, whose car is this? It's my uncle's. Let's go for a ride.
Sure, okay, it's my tio's.
So I get in the car. We're cruising Monterey Park. We get stopped by the cops, and we get arrested. So he goes to jail. I go to jail for joyriding. and I ended up going to jail for. The judge sent me to jail for a year, but I got out in 90 days because I didn't have a record. I mean, I had a clean record. 90 days I was out. So a year later, after I got out, the attorney that helped me get out came to me and said, "Hey, remember that judge that sent you to jail?" And I said, "Yeah. Well, he's up for re-election. Do you want to get involved in the campaign against him?" I said, "Absolutely."
So you had a new mission, right?
Had a new mission.
You fired 2 presidents, and now you're going to unseat a judge. Wow, and you're what, 19, 20 years old?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
So I get involved in this campaign, and we knock out the judge, right? So now when I'm having this discussion with the mayor, and I'm telling him about this, and he says, "Who is the judge? Who did you get in?" And I said, "Well, now he's Judge Manuel Sanz." And he was shocked by that because he says, Manny Sanz? And I go, "Yes." And he says, "I went to high school with him, Art." He says, "Can you call him? I'd like to talk to him." So I get up, go to the phone booth, call the court, because I was really tight with the judge. And the bailiff said, "No, Art, the judge already went home. Call him at home." So I called him up, and I told him that I had Tom Bradley, and he was shocked. I said, "Manny, he wants to see you, because bring him over to the house." So here I'm taking the councilman over to Judge Sanz's house, and they ended up spending a couple of hours together just talking. But that really solidified a relationship with me and Tom Bradley, because I was kind of involved in his world. So I ended up campaigning for him. I volunteered. I was a volunteer for almost 18 months. We won, and then he asked me to come and work on his office, and I started working for him as his East LA rep, and I ended up working for him for 18 years.
Right, and that's a great success story. I know the two, you're really close in Art, and that helped you develop, I guess, that give-back mentality. And so we're going to be doing a series about this historic El Pino. So as we close, tell us a little bit about El Pino, and then in our next series, we can follow up with that story, okay?
So El Pino is an icon tree in East LA. It became famous because of the movie Blood In and Blood Out. And the land was for sale. It was a vacant parcel of land. I saw it. Actually, my assistant, Maricela, is the one that found it online.
Okay.
And she told me about this property. I ended up buying it, and I wanted to preserve the tree. And so I'm doing everything within my power to make sure that the tree stays there for the next 100 years.
Well, that's great that you are now coming from East LA, the struggles that you had. And I want our viewers to understand, a lot of Chicana leaders, you know, it wasn't easy for them. It was a real struggle, but here you are giving back, and we appreciate that. So quickly, as we close, what is your vision for El Pino?
So my daughter and I have formed a foundation for the El Pino that will preserve the El Pino forever. We are going to build a new home on the property. So first we're going to start with creating like a little pocket park for El Pino, completely with lights and beautiful flowers, and so that the community understands that I have no intention of ever hurting the tree. I want to, because there's been a lot of rumors out there that I was going to knock the tree down, the big bag developer coming in to build something, right? And so it was a struggle for me to convince the community and the elected officials. So thank God that they're friends of mine, that they took my word when I said nothing's going to happen to the tree. So we're going to develop this little pocket park first. And then once the community sees that nothing's going to happen to the tree, then I'm building the home on the property next to the tree that will be used as a kind of like a memorial to the movie, so that people will be able to stay at the home and will be able to see the whole history of El Pino. So that's our goal, is to preserve it forever.
Well, I want to thank you for visiting with us today, Art. And we will be back as we want to follow the development of that historic property. But once again, muchas gracias. Really appreciate it. For all our viewers to know and understand, the Pino will be preserved forever, and we want to thank Art Gastelum from East LA and Nogales, Sonora, for preserving that, and his daughter Michelle with the foundation. So please donate to the foundation. Understand that the Pino will be there forever, and we'll be back with LA Barrio Stories to follow up on the development of the property. This is Dr. Jose Leyba and my colleague and friend Art Gastelum. signing off until our next session. Stay tuned. Muchas gracias. Adios, raza. And remember, download us on Latino USA TV app, and you'll be able to see Art's interview and other interviews from Chicano and Chicana leaders here in LA. Muchas gracias. Adios.